right, here we go.
Here's your gavel. I'm handing the gavel over.
Ain't no stinking bad.
I didn't know.
All right, good evening, everybody. We'll get this meeting of the Facilities Committee started. It's 7:01 on January 23rd. People in attendance here, we have Keith McCarrick, Melanie Cunningham, I'm JP Prego, Dan DeRizo, our Business Administrator, Dr. Alan Roach, Superintendent, and Doug Kenwood, our Facilities and Operations Director. So, I'd like to start with a motion to approve the November 28th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Motion?
Second?
Any questions or comments, discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to old business. Hand it over to you, Doug.
Okay. The first item here under old business is, you recall that we had contracted with a contractor for the installation of a welding exhaust system in the high school. That project is complete. We had the permit inspection last week and training with the contractor, so the system's up and running and doing its thing.
Yeah.
On budget?
Yeah, there were no change orders.
No surprises, so.
No.
Good.
That's very good.
It's actually a nice system that they put in. Blake and Dan, we're also trained, so they offer to help out with filter changes because it's a multiple stage filtration system. Essentially, it just draws in the welding fumes and it goes through all sorts of filters and then discharges the air back in the room. Yeah.
What is it, like graduating system of filters?
Yes, yeah, it's a pre-filter and a bag filter and then HEPA and charcoal and, yeah. It works well,
Great.
from what I can see.
So no more open doors?
Yep.
Yay.
No? The next item is here under old business is the middle school tapping fees. If you recall, we had received 2 letters from Upper Hanover Authority, one about Hereford, which they have since waived.
That was
about 25,000 exactly.
Right.
And then the second one was for middle school tapping fees back to an application that was made, I think, in 2017. Mr. DeRiso and I have been searching high and low, trying to find anything that would prove that we paid these fees, or even that we were invoiced, and we haven't found anything. We went back to the Plan Con J documents that list every charge associated with the middle school. It's not in there. I did speak to Mr. Summers, and what he recommended was I go back to them and essentially tell them that, this is an off-budget expense, and would they be willing to accept payment in the next budget year. So they took that back to their board, and they agreed, but it appears that we're still paying.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do like an installment plan, it's just, we were
We
pushing
didn't,
off to next
we
year.
didn't ask that specifically.
Was it the first time we got the bill? Like, did we ever get it before, or is it just because of the?
No, we had never received an invoice, and they said as much. And when I questioned, well, how would we know that we needed to pay? And they said it should have come through the engineer, the civil engineer on the project. But then they promptly sent me an invoice for 85,000
So
and
it
change.
should have come through. I'm glad you said that, because, I mentioned this in a previous meeting over the past few months. This should have been on a list somewhere along the line. You said you couldn't find a Plan Con J, and I appreciate you going back and looking, but, this is what I'm thinking, we're the engineer in charge of this process. That should have been on a checklist for him somewhere. Who
Yep.
was our engineer, and can we go back to them and say, what the hell did you do? Or didn't do?
I can certainly ask.
You can consult with Kyle if you have
Yeah,
to.
right.
That is my opinion of it, because this is a hefty sum of money.
It really is.
And we're being penalized because of ineptitude, and we've had that happen a few times over the
Yep.
years.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
So that would be Dewey Engineering. Yeah.
Yeah, Dewey and or
Roseland.
Barry Isaac, probably.
Yeah, I think it's Dewey though. I think it was
But I can certainly ask the question. There hasn't been any finance charges or anything like that to my knowledge.
No, the invoice itself was just for the tapping fees. There were no separate
Right.
line items for.
Right.
Well, Melanie and I had
finance
gone to one of
charges.
the meetings, and they did tell us that they had not invoiced us prior to that time, so,
Mhm.
you know, I couldn't expect them to try and charge us any late fees or anything like
Right.
that. so.
Right.
Right.
What was that fee, 85,000?
85,000. Yep.
I mean, things like that coupled with phasing it with the middle school is just hard to swallow.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
Yep. The next one is the Walt Graber Lane Maintenance Agreement. I'll turn that over to Dr. Roach.
Okay, thank you. So the Walt Graber Lane Maintenance Agreement, this is an item that was actually presented at or discussed here at this committee, probably pre-COVID.
That's a long time.
Back there, and Mr. Spano, and I'm not sure everyone's name here, I know we have some residents that are here, and I let them know that we were having the conversation here at tonight's meeting. So back then, when we had that conversation, there was concerns over the road, the use of the road, and previous, for lack of a better term, handshake agreements of how to manage that out. And with transition, I know with transition of personnel, with your position, with my position, we wanted to make sure that we get a more formal agreement. I think that's what we talked about, not having a handshake agreement because, one, we're dealing with public money, but two, also, when people change, we want to make sure we have an agreement that's going to be there for the duration of time for that. So we went through, after we took a break with COVID, the facilities was not the topic at that time. Eventually got reconnected on the topic of sharing the costs of the maintenance of the road. So Mr. Kemlin and I had met a couple times. We met with Mr. Spano and talked a little more, and then we ended up, I'm not sure, I think we ended up setting a Zoom up and had a meeting with as many of the residents that were able to attend to talk about it a little bit, introduce the conversation. We had either talked with the board or with sections of the committee here about having a more formal agreement. So long story short, we presented, as a part of the Zoom, I think we presented an agreement. We got some feedback on some things that were questionable and or not clear. Made some adjustments to it and then put it back to the group to see, to get a more formalized agreement. The gist of the agreement in terms of the financial piece was that we own 50% of the rock that would be purchased. The neighbors on the road, there's 5 people that live on there, but one doesn't touch, one's driveway doesn't come onto Walt Graber. So I think that they're not really included in the financial conversations, but that would be amongst the members there. So the other 4 families would split the rest, and then we would own the part of spreading the rock and putting it out, which I think was part of the previous agreement. So that was the initial, one of the initial offer from there. I know there's concerns, and I'm sure we'll hear from some of the residents here about being tied to the deed and then a couple of the questions, but we did go back and forth. That piece is still in there. Most recently, there's been a lot of emails and conversations going on. I sent an email to the neighbors, and I think I did share that with the board in terms of working with the solicitor on a previous agreement from probably predates some of the residents that were there in place, then this Act 75, which Mr. Spano brought forward in terms of spreading or sharing the common use of the road, according to Kyle, our solicitor. There's still a question of the previous agreement that some people signed that did not include the district, if that is in place, because Act 75 is only in place if there's no previous agreement. So I guess there's still a question if that previous agreement is in place or not in place. Legally, they'll have to figure that out. Then the Act 75, which is based upon usage of the road. So Kyle had put together some charts of usage of the road and with some rough finances that try to give an example, and then our agreement, another example there, which our agreement that we put together has the district bearing the majority, not the majority, but more of the financial aspect of it. So I think we're kind of at a crossroad in terms of those pieces without having a piece tied to the deed, that it is no different than once any resident changes or anyone else. The agreement, I guess, would be either shared amongst the other members or in the same position the previous agreement was from the 90s or whatever that was. So we're still holding that the agreement that we have is the best financially for everyone involved, including ourselves, as we would cover half the rock as well as the piece for spreading it. Kind of where we are. So I know there's some questions. I'm not sure how you want to move forward with your
Yeah, I think this is a good opportunity to, those that, from public, if you have any comments or questions about this, feel free to speak up. think we're welcoming it right now.
I was going to say, I do have one statement as far as Alan said, that with the previous agreement with the one neighbor that supposedly doesn't pay for it, I guess with everything that's going on, this is none of our doing, we all got letters in the mail from a lawyer, from another member of the road. So basically, our own neighbor sent us a legal form, and I guess he's paying now. So, and it's kind of disconcerting that that person was the one who made the agreement with him that he wouldn't have to pay, and then had to kind of serve him to make him pay. So I'm a little concerned about how the neighbors are going to be
Sure.
on this.
Understand that.
The agreement on 1990, Tony nor I were there, so I don't know how that carries through, but my concern on that, I don't know if any of you are really familiar with it, but there are two names on one deed, one signature. And I do believe for a notary, every name on every deed has to be signed. So I don't know how that is even notarized.
I don't know either.
I don't
Our
understand
solicitor
how
looked at
we're-
it. Our solicitor looked at it and said he's not even, so if Act 75 would be discussed, that if that agreement is legal or whatever it would be, would have to be verified first before, because
Right.
it's based upon that, so.
And I do
That's
have a lawyer
17.
that's looking
Yeah.
at that, just to see if
Right.
that, because, I mean, I've spoken with previous notaries or other notaries prior to contacting my lawyer,
Yeah.
just to see if, and they said, yes, every name on a deed has to be signed, and the name is listed, but then no signature, and then listed again.
Mhm.
So you can't have a legal document with somebody's name not on it. And then there was a question of, were they still married? Because we know that they got divorced. They got divorced 5 years later.
Right.
And she passed another 11 years later. So legally, her name has to be on that agreement, or it's not a valid agreement.
So that leaves it out of Act 75?
No, I mean, I
That
think,
would, that would make Act 75 actually legal. If
We did it
that.
backwards, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Sorry.
you know, if that 1990 agreement is not legal or whatever, you know, whether it's not in place,
Right.
then it could fall to the Act 75 pieces of percentages of usage, that type of thing. You know, so that would have probably the district owning half of the rock, and then however the other portion is would be based upon the usage there, I assume, based upon the example that we had, and then half of the spread cost
Right,
as well.
which is basically what we offered. to
We did
do.
half and full, we did full of the spread
Oh,
cost.
full.
Yeah, we were
Oh,
paying
okay.
half the
Gotcha.
materials, and we
Okay.
take all the work.
Yeah.
And sorry, I do have another question, and this is for Alan. I don't know how you got that copy of that agreement. I wasn't even aware of it. Like, I've lived there 17 years.
Yeah, the
And
solicitor had it, he looked it
I
up.
had no idea that it existed, so that was,
Surprise.
yeah, surprise, surprise, but,
Yeah, I feel horrible that you guys are having strife on the street, that's not the goal at all. I mean, I can sense it from the emails, and that's not
Yeah.
the goal at all,
Um,
but,
So I'm curious, so this conversation, I apologize, my name's Diana Smith. So I was wondering, you mentioned that this was discussed prior to COVID, so this has been on your radar for some time?
yeah, it was
The-
discussed
discussing-
fall.
okay.
It's been a long time.
Okay, so was the agreement this agreement that you proposed, was this something that you've been working on for a long time, or is this just more recent?
No, we've had it it's been out for 6 or 8 months, I mean, that's,
Well,
Right, that's,
prior-
I'm talking prior.
no, not prior to that, no.
Okay.
No, it was a long break because COVID was kind of shut everything down, we were doing other things, and it was kind of slow to the upkeep, and I think really what triggered it was probably Mr. Spano reaching out saying, it's time for us to get the rock done, and it was, okay, that's back on the radar to kind of
Yeah.
address it,
Right.
you know?
So the 1990 agreement, was this something that you talked about prior?
No, it just came up in the
This
latest.
just came up?
I think it came up on the Act 75 conversation. I think that's when I asked the solicitor to give us some feedback and, okay, let me look at it, and then it
So
kind of came up.
was it a resident that brought this up initially? I'm
No,
just
the
curious.
solicitor.
You said that they found it, or it wasn't posed by?
I got it from the solicitor.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I was just curious.
Now, before Tony gets, the other question I had, which I had brought up to you, was the description on with the agreement that the school laid out.
Mhm.
It says spreading stone. And my whole thought was, we're getting away from handshake agreements, and I'm just curious why it doesn't say grading removal of potholes and spreading stone. Because that's the way it's always been done, and you had stated to me that that was, you know, we understand that. But my concern is if it's not in writing, in that agreement, the next superintendent takes over or somebody sells, then school comes down, spreads stone, and potholes are there in a month. So it has to be written out what service actually is getting done, not just spreading stone. So, and then that was, you know, my biggest thing as far as, you know, the current agreement, other than being attached to the deed, it was, you know, if we're getting away from handshake agreements, we need to get away from handshake agreements, not, you and I understand
I
it's
got
gonna
you.
be graded and.
I mean,
and
when you guys
spread.
first saw the agreement, you gave us a lot of feedback, we went back, we
Right.
made some changes, we removed the signs, whatever other things were there. This wasn't brought up, right? That specific,
Well, I had
That
emailed
was
you
brought
after
up.
that.
He did.
right, okay, well, at some point, we said, this is the agreement.
Right.
So clearly, there's 2 people that have signed it, 3 people that haven't. So it's, you're either not happy with it, or we gotta hear the feedback to know.
Well, and I'm actually concerned by somebody who said that you have to have everything in agreement, signed it. Like, you have to have everything in detail. I've written these, everything's gotta be in detail, but she signed it. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me, how you can sit and say, everything has to be in detail, and then you missed the biggest detail on how we're gonna treat the road. Like, I don't know why you would sign it if you, I mean, I agree with
Again,
you.
it's-
I don't want a handshake agreement either. I
Right.
want to make sure if we move forward, everything's done right. And I just don't want to see in 10 years, you're gone, you know, half the school board's gone.
So if there was more clarification as the details such as the grading and filling of potholes and then after spreading the stone, you know, it's
It doesn't
more
guarantee
palatable
I'd
to-
sign it, or the rest of us would sign it, because I know there's one that I don't think is ever going to sign it regardless. But I think that really needs to be spelled out. And I think that the sticking point is the attachment to the deed. Because I think if you have a form that's signed and notarized, I don't think it needs to be attached to the deed.
Yeah, but is
Or-
it gonna get lost again in the shuffle?
Well, and,
Could be a term agreement,
I mean,
6-year term or 8-year term, whatever.
and if it doesn't work
And
out.
if somebody moves, then they're gonna have to agree to that, or
Yeah. I mean, it could be a long-term, not a long-term, but, you know, every time somebody sells, it might have to come up again, because,
they may agree right to it, and then they can sign on to it.
because I know we did a title search when I bought my house, and it wasn't brought to our attention that there was any kind of financial agreement
I have
to
a total search with me, it doesn't say nothing.
treating
on
the
there.
road, so that 1990 agreement, I don't believe is.
That's
Yeah,
because
but
it was
if it
never
was just
attached to
something
the deed.
notarized, yeah, if it was just something
notarized,
notarized, it never
Yeah.
got that far. It never went to a title agency.
But at the same time, as, you know, from what I'm looking at, you know, I think I see things pretty well on both sides. My wife hates me for that. You know, the protection for both of us, though, is the fact that if you're there and 10 years down the line, somebody else moves, you know, one of your other neighbors moves, and it's attached to the deed, they're now obligated, just like you've been obligated, to do this. Okay, so it's protecting you for the shared cost. And it protects us in the event that somebody does move, you know, we know that we're still going to be able to go in and perform that maintenance with you, you know, and simply do the work and just have you contribute a portion of the bill towards that work. So, you know, I see it as a win-win situation for both of us, you know.
But
And-
that's where Act 75 takes over. I mean, we're already legally all responsible to take care of the road.
With the
And-
new
and-
act.
And that went into effect in 2021, so that is a new,
Now, how's Act 75 change it? You know, it sounds, you know, from what I just heard, you know, we would be responsible for half the cost and half the maintenance, whereas right now, we've proposed, we're taking all the cost for the materials, or,
Yeah.
excuse me, half the materials and the cost for everything else. So that cost could then possibly be greater for you if you go
Right.
through Act 75.
correct.
And we will also take care of the maintenance of the snow, which school district, for the 20 years I've lived there, has never touched the snow, and we have never asked them for it.
Right,
So how's the snow get taken care of now? It's just
We
you
take care
working
of it.
together, yeah.
yeah.
So somebody at the end, somebody at the road side could just plow right through in front of their house and they're not worried about the rest of you.
Right. He's the last house. I'm in
So I gotta
so I'm
take
in the
care of
middle.
him.
He takes it
Big
all.
truck.
Smallest car on the block.
Okay.
I think part of this is, I think, a lot of the residences have been there for quite some time, and the one that he was referring to, she's the one that put the road in. And I think there's a lot of history there, and a lot of, maybe animosity. I guess there's concerns that the school has really shirked any responsibility for the road, financially and in other ways. And that 1990 agreement, when we spoke with her, she said that part of her memory is that that was kind of something they had to do because the school did not want to take any responsibility. In the township, they refused to take any responsibility. So I think there's a lot of concern there, hopefully, I hate to use the word animosity, but we'd like to put something into place. We'd like to make sure that everybody is willing to kind of agree to that. And also, we just, I lost my point, I'm sorry. If I
That's
keep it,
okay.
I'll come back to it. But, yeah, I think that, with the township not wanting to do it and the school not wanting to be involved, I think that's part of the concern.
Yeah, I think the school was
Oh.
pushing on the township to take care of it.
And the other thing that we noticed, and you saw my email, that was my email about, all my points and being blindsided by the agreement, because I was really not aware that this agreement was gonna come out. We knew that, we would like to come to agreement
Sure.
about paying for the stone and
Sure.
maybe helping with the grading, which for a few years, it was nice that, the school would send someone down to do the grading and spread the stone, and that ended when his employment ended. But I guess the concern is really, there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of changes in
I'm
this
sorry,
agreement.
could I stop you for a second there? Can you tell me when it ended, when it changed, when their appointment ended?
So.
Just clarify, that'll help me understand some
Yeah,
of this, I think.
that was my question too.
Yeah. So there was an employee, and I purchased the house for my father. So there was a lot of discussion, and you might have some insight too, as to how discussion with the school and having him come down and helping. When we would purchase the stone, I don't remember, did the school pay anything for the stone? No. But then he would come down and use the tractor and try to scrape it as best he could with what he had, and then just spread the stone for us. So that was the gentleman's agreement that we had.
I think in the beginning it was, he just did it on his
Probably.
own because he knew the neighbors.
Yeah.
He just kind of snuck
What was the
down.
time frame on
He
this?
just
10,
retired last
15
year.
years
Just
ago?
retired.
Yeah, Jeff Karam just
Yeah.
retired.
Yeah. And he knew my father well, so,
It's a little
circles.
community, we get it.
Yeah.
We get
So,
it.
and so the big thing is, that's now ended, which was, we just kind of took over again with taking care of the road. It'd be nice to kind of get an agreement, but I think a lot of the changes that are put in this agreement are bringing up some red flags for us.
Yep.
Very, very serious about that we've had discussions with some other neighbors, and we're like, if these changes are made and put on the deed, maybe you mean well, but down in the future, what if somebody wants to do something else? We've seen changes with the school. I grew up there, so I've seen, we went from a fence to no fence, and we went from a gate at the end to no gate. We went to open fields to, bam, there's a field right, there's a turf field right there with a fence right there, and now the traffic's increased. The golf carts come running through, we're seeing that, And I feel like we do our due diligence in the community. We're always watching what's going on in there. We're looking out for the kids. We're making sure that there's, people are not flying down that road, which they do all the time.
Called the cops numerous times because people doing donuts in the field.
Yeah, we just heard,
Yeah,
I think it was
unfortunately, you're in the
New Year's Eve.
township and don't have police.
And state police, yeah, we just, and they know that, because we just heard,
Oh, yeah.
I think it was New Year's Eve, we heard a bunch of this, sorry, it was the last foggy day that we had.
Yeah, it wasn't New Year's.
They were in that parking lot, just, doing donuts, screaming and yelling, who knows what, and it's like, this is the stuff that we try to pay attention to, we try to be cognizant of, and just to kind of keep peace in the community too. So I think it behooves both sides of the road to want to get along and do what's best for us. And what's, the next person to own that road, that could be one of my kids. The woman next to me, she's 91, it could be her kids, her grandkids, her great-grandkids. Could be your kids, so I know the Forcells, their daughter, she's the next resident there, she's on the deed, so, these are our concerns.
And I think, we're kind of on the same boat here. We're trying, you guys are trying to protect yourselves, we're trying to protect the school as well. We have public that we have to respond to and we're responsible for as well. And, correct me if I'm wrong, Al, the difference between the Act 75, if we went that route or went with what we're proposing, is Act 75 does not go through with the deed, or that's just.
I don't have to read it, I don't know. I don't think so, but.
It does only as landowners for Act 75, because it's a private road act. It's for maintenance on private roads. And I think the reason Act 75 came into being is there's a lot of private roads that just go unkept.
Sure.
Because we as neighbors have always agreed, we've always paid, we've always done it, and that's not common.
Right.
But I think from my standpoint, though, like, that's, the agreement that we set forth, that's at the recommendation of our solicitor, of our lawyer, saying this is what's best to protect the school, and we also thought, it was a good.
We thought we were being a good
well.
neighbor too.
Right. I mean, if there's further concerns that you have with the way that any verbiage or things that might be missing out of that agreement, I think we.
Well, I wrote down that they would consider a term to it, so I can ask that to Kyle, ask him that
Term.
feedback. The
Detail
term,
on the-
more specific on the grading versus, spreading, gradient, pothole, that type of thing. And then the specifics of Act 75 in terms of snow removal. I don't know if that would have been included, because it's not necessarily maintenance, so that's more temporary. But I'll ask him, those are the three things I wrote down.
Okay.
from the
Is there
conversation.
anything else while he's writing?
I think my biggest issue is the deed, that it's not attached to our deed. I mean, I'm all for a term. Doesn't matter the length, 6, 8 years, whatever we can agree on, would be good with me.
How long do you expect to stay there? How long do you expect to stay there? I'm sorry.
Well, if I hit the lottery, not long.
That's all of us.
Yeah.
If I hit the lottery forever.
So,
Why move?
unfortunately, I
I got
don't think
too much stuff.
we're not going to come to an agreement tonight to
No.
finalize this, but
Understand that.
we're willing to
No,
again, take
we
your
did
feedback
expect that.
again, go
Yeah.
back and see what we can do to answer some of these questions and maybe fine tune things to get you guys more comfortable on this.
And the other thing is, like I said, I do have a legal counsel that's looking at that 1990 agreement. Like, if that comes back as a void agreement or something that doesn't carry through with the properties,
Gotcha.
then,
Yeah, that's a question that
I
I
don't want
was
to
listening
say
as
we're
well.
back to square one, but then we're down to, do we want to sign an agreement or
Yep.
do we just want to follow? And yeah, I think we all understand if it comes to, yes, we have to pay for half of, or whatever our percentage is of the spreading of the stone as well, then it is what it is. It's what, I think it's going to be what everybody's comfortable with.
Sure.
And I know that the other homeowner, she's 91, she's not going to be comfortable with signing almost anything.
Gotcha.
Because it's with
Because she's
her,
91.
it's her age,
Yeah.
she knows it's
For
her
that road.
family.
Yeah.
Well, she's been taking care of the road
She
for
put the
60
road
years
in,
by
yeah,
herself.
yeah.
Pretty much by herself, but.
Yeah, so she could tell you some stories. I have a question about, so what really is the intent for the road? Like first of all, what would be your qualms as to why you want to get this typed up? You said you have concerns about school, protecting the school, right?
Right.
What are the concerns that you would see? I'd like to hear about that. And what are your, your plans for the road, or possibly that field just beyond the road?
So maybe that's part of the issue. So I don't think we have any nefarious purpose that we're gonna put a huge stadium up. We're not doing that.
Well, I think probably Doug
Did it
could
once.
address it. It's more
Yeah.
access
It's
for
more-
us.
Yeah, but not only that, but I think the whole I don't remember who came in hollering about it when we originally had the issue. When we originally had, apparently we hadn't done what we didn't know was a gentleman's agreement because we didn't have an agreement. Again, with the changing of the guard. And I think that, whoever came in hollering about it, we were like, okay, well, maybe we should fix this so that so this doesn't happen again. Because we don't want to, we're not bad neighbors. We don't want to be bad neighbors. We live here too, so, you know what I mean? So I think, that's what I remember from the beginning of this, which was quite a while ago.
And Act 75 did come into effect, like I said, in 21, so
Yeah.
it's been
It's
years
been long
after this all
before
started.
that, yeah, yeah.
It's been, to your point, if I may, it's been going on for a while. I remember when Alan first started.
Right, it was
Yeah.
Mr.
And it
Spanner.
was
Mr.
like, Alan's like, what? I don't know anything about this. And
Yeah,
like-
exactly.
And then it was like the uncovering process.
Then we were trying to
Mr.
figure
Spanner
out
had a
what-
bill, for Rock, he said, you need to pay half this.
I'm sorry.
And I said, I don't know anything about it, is there something in place? He's like, no. If you have an email from Dr. Malloy or Dr. Kirby or anyone that agrees to something, because then we would be bound by it for the short term.
Right.
And I think he thought I was being flippant when I wasn't, I was being truthful.
Yeah.
If it's public money, you just can't pay it in terms of, I don't know. It was all new. So that goes back to there's no, I'm not aware of any other uses actually. Through the KCBA process of doing the facility usage, we actually specifically said, don't even look at that road. That's not like, with
There
your,
you go.
with your
That
ideas,
helps.
with
I
your
forgot we did
ideas,
that, yeah.
with your ideas, don't, that's not
We just did
part
that
of the
feasibility
conversation.
study we've been working on for a long time, and yeah,
Right.
don't touch Walk
A
Rainbow
10-year
Road.
study.
Don't even put that anywhere in your thoughts.
Right.
So,
The feasibility
yeah.
study is we evaluated all the facilities in the district
Yeah, and the
to see
fields
what we
and
need
the-
to do
all kinds of stuff.
as far as maintenance and upkeep for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future and what we are able to do with the buildings if we want to do anything else like
Yeah.
expansion. But we do not have any plans for expanding back in those
Yeah,
fields
don't be
back
afraid.
there.
Well, those are county
Or
fields, right?
exchanging,
Yes.
or changing that roadway at all.
Yeah, that's county property, yeah.
I think
Yeah, the
the
county or
school
something.
district leases that. I don't know how long of a lease that is.
And I think they just let us use it.
I don't know, since I've been here, there's not been baseball played there. There was, I think, prior to that.
Right.
And then I don't know, if
Soccer,
do they use soccer?
baseball,
Soccer, I know
yeah.
soccer was
Yeah,
there for a while.
soccer.
Yeah,
we
do
Yeah.
use it on occasion. We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's kind of cool. I mean, as long as you're not shooting
Or
your
you
house.
see the javelins flying, I'm like,
And the road is used, like the golf, they mentioned the golf carts, that's occasionally like an athletic trainer that needs to get back to that area.
Right.
Emergency access.
Exactly, and that's really the only way to
Get
get
there.
there, short of coming
Since
down the
The turf
walkway.
field went in, right, yeah.
Yeah, with the fence.
So, so, yeah.
And it's, we had to have a contractor use that road for the tree removal and things like that, but it's,
And that's, I guess that's part of the question is to, if it's half owned by the school, the maintenance was never done on the school's end. And it's, I think that's part of the sticking point, it's been
But
decades.
is it half owned by the school?
Well, you own half of the road,
yeah,
right?
half the road is owned by the school.
Okay, I didn't remember.
That
I
was
mean, or
already
at least
discussed.
you're
That's
on
why-
that
that's why
side,
it's-
I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that
It's
was,
been a long time
that's,
since I was back there too.
All right, so Alan, you got some homework to do,
okay.
and keep the lines of communication open.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
well, thank you.
best thing we can do right now.
Yeah. I'll follow up with an email next couple of weeks and include the board in as well.
Okay, thanks, Al.
Yep,
Okay?
And if I find out any information, Alan, I'll forward it.
please do, thank you. I appreciate that.
All
Yeah,
right,
Thank you for coming out and talking with us.
yeah,
thank you.
Glad to give you a headache anytime.
Thanks a lot, Al.
Well, we got 2 or 3 of those scheduled every
We always
day.
have to-
What do we do?
Yeah, it's what we do.
That's work.
Problem solvers.
Speaking of headaches, let's go back to Doug.
Yeah, sorry.
Fair to say to Doug.
Poor
Sorry,
Doug.
that was my fault.
It's okay.
I said.
We're on sewer.
I tried to start sewer news with the welding exhaust system, right?
That was the good part, I should put that
That's right.
in.
No, there are.
Yeah, we're
Could be like continental sandwich, right? The two.
That's it.
That's right, you guys.
See you
All
guys.
right, thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Yeah, see ya.
So you may recall a number of months ago, and I meant to look it up, but I lost track of time. I'm not sure if it was 6 months or 9 months or maybe or longer. I told you the story that UMJA had done some inspection and camera work in the parking lot of 4-5, unbeknownst to me or anyone in the school district. They've come back and basically have said that there's a manhole close to the auxiliary gym entrance there, sort of where the parking lot dips to go down to that lower doorway. That manhole needed some work, which they did some work a couple, maybe 18 months ago or so. But then they also did some smoke testing and camera work to inspect the lateral that goes from that manhole all the way out to 6th Street. And essentially came back and said that it has breaches in it, groundwater's getting into their collection system, and they have a contractor ready and willing to make the repairs, we just have to pay for it. I asked to see the video, I got a copy of the video. It is a video of a sewer lateral. Can I confirm that it's our sewer lateral? I can. So then about mid-November, I got 2 quotes from them. One is to line the length of that lateral from the manhole to 6th Street. It's 270 linear feet, and the quote is $17,555. And apparently the previous work that they had done to the manhole, and that was basically taking the cover off, and they lined the interior of the manhole, so there was no infiltration through the walls of the manhole. Now they also want to raise the manhole up 12 inches. So they, I don't know if you can, sorry, thought I had a picture here. I've since had a conversation with them and told them that I wasn't real excited about either one of the scopes of the work. The manhole, I think would be, 1, a tripping hazard, and 2, would be an issue for this, something like this, but not quite as tall,
Okay.
to prevent, water from careening down the parking lot and getting in to the top of the manhole, which may have, leaks. So this is 2 feet high, they're proposing something 1 foot high. I'm concerned about plowing, for example. So in all totaled, it's about $21,000.
Is it under
That's
the
just a
bid
raising?
threshold?
No, that's for raising and lining of the 270 feet of lateral.
So about 18,000 for the lateral, and about
Yep,
3,000.
right, 17,555 and 3635 for the manhole. This particular contractor, which is UMJA's contractor, they've been doing work all over the
place.
called Performance Pipeline. I did look, they are a CoStarz contractor, so we can spend that much money without a public bid or something like that, because they're on the CoStarz cooperative. I don't believe that we're obligated to go with this particular contractor. I could certainly, get additional quotes. I'm just, I feel like my hands are tied a little bit. I don't know that I have the legal ability to say, no, we're not interested. No, no, thank you.
I was just gonna say, what are the consequences if you don't?
Well, in the boroughs, I think they only require you to repair laterals when you're selling the property
Yeah.
to get a use and occupancy permit. We already have the permit, so unless they revoke it. Okay.
I have not had a chance to run any of
I'm not
this past Kyle.
serious about that, but
I certainly can. But I just wanted to give you an update of where it stands. The other thing I told them flat out was that I don't have this in my budget,
Yeah.
so I don't.
I mean, if you went out for other bids, would somebody then have to come in and do the same thing in camera and check the lines to see?
Yeah, likely, which is, that may not be free either to you.
Right.
I was just gonna say that.
Or they might have a different opinion.
And they did this about 18 months ago.
I would have, Keith, I'd have to go back and look.
Well, it was a while.
There's been quite the history, and then it died down. We did grant them access to the manhole, and they did repairs.
Do you feel that the 12-inch, do you feel that raising the manhole is required?
Yeah, but it depends what they want to
I'm on the fence about that. He offered to meet with me out there, the gentleman that runs this company. And, you know, maybe we can kick around and find some other solution, but that's.
Because this is in the driveway parking area, correct? Because you said it could be a plowing issue?
Yes, it's definitely in the macadam area of the, 6th Street side of the building. Yep.
Is it close to where like the dungeon is for the sports equipment?
Going down that big hill.
Peg?
What, down on 400? Where do you mean?
No, at the 4-5.
Oh, at the 4-5, oh, down there.
Yeah.
Is
Is that where it is?
Building.
If they
Where the
raise-
entrance to the dungeon is there?
It's, you know where that lot on the 6th Street side, it's lined for buses, basically.
Yeah.
If you were to walk in the building and go in the auxiliary gym and then exit the back door,
Yeah.
turn right,
Mm-hmm.
and we were near the flight exit,
Right.
and then the parking lot sort of dips down to another set of glass doors further down. It's right at that kind of ridge before it
Oh,
dips.
now I know where you're at.
Yeah.
At the top of the hill.
Is that a traffic area?
No, I'm looking at,
That's it.
You'd have to go look for it.
and of course,
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the area, that's the only reason why I
it
asked.
looks like Google Earth, there's a big shadow from the building, so you can't see
That's
it.
okay, I'll go past in the daytime sometime, and then I'll have security call on me.
Yeah.
Darn it.
But it's, if you
For
can,
something that has nothing
This
to
is
do
the-
with teaching kids.
I
the
know.
picture, so it's like here, in this area here. So it's got this full,
Yeah, I know right where it is.
this full run to 6th Street,
Yeah.
that's the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The auxiliary gym is just made a right and something goes over.
It's right there before you go down the hill to
Yes.
where the equipment
That's still the
room is.
Y.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I thought it was.
Yep. Yep.
I didn't think I was
So, this is just one of those tough,
So I think it's worth having a conversation with Kyle at least to see.
Yeah.
What our
How was
obligation is to-
liability to it? I
Right.
mean, what's our accountability to it?
Right.
sure. I can certainly do that, and like I told them, I don't, even if we agree to do it, I don't think we're gonna agree to do it this budget year, but.
Yeah,
Did they give you a time limit or anything?
I would ask them about a time frame for it.
Well, of course, all their quotes say pricing is valid for 30 days.
Yeah,
But I can take that as a homework item and just run past Kyle and see what he thinks our obligations.
I think it's worth asking.
Yeah, that's true.
Tell them we're desperate.
Yeah. See, maybe I could have a discussion with Jen at Township.
She's, from what I understand from the contractor, she's very interested in having this work done. Asking about with the contractor often.
Okay.
Yeah.
Duly noted.
All right.
Work with us, it gives you.
Anything else on old business? And we can move on to the new business. Doug's busy Christmas.
Yes.
Yes, so I just wanted to give everyone an update on the insurance claims and the issues that we had over the holiday break. There were 4 incidents, one of which didn't rise to the level of a claim. It was far below our deductible. The first one was on the 23rd in the afternoon. We had a tree come down near Mr. Spano's house and crunch the tribe fence.
Is that the one under the deductible?
Under the what?
That's the one under the deductible? That one, the fence?
No,
No?
no,
Yeah,
because
no.
it, when it came down, it damaged a length of about 30 feet worth
Remember
of
seeing
the
the pictures.
fence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fence.
and it also hit the 2 team benches, the aluminum team benches that were there and dented those up pretty good.
They were
I
probably
think
doing
that protected the turf, though.
I do think, looking at it, that it was a old ash tree, it
Yeah.
looks like. And when it came down and hit the fence and then hit the benches, it splintered into, 100-foot-long pieces, which I think is fortunate. I think it would have, if it didn't hit the benches, it would have damaged the turf. So we lucked out in that regard. We've had the tree removed. We do have quotes for the benches and the fence replacement. That's all been turned over to insurance. I'm just waiting for them to give me the go-ahead to, issue purchase orders for that work.
Okay.
So that was the first one on the 23rd. On the 25th, on Christmas Day, we had the sprinkler head at the middle school, front of the building near the flagpole. So if you came out of the auxiliary gym, you're in the gym, you come out of the gym, you make a hard right, and then if you were to exit that way past the locker rooms, there was a vestibule there in between two sets of glass doors. That sprinkler had let loose about 2:30 in the afternoon on Christmas Day. It actually triggered a fire alarm. That's so, Red Hill and Pennsburg responded. Dave Weller was first on the scene, and they were able to get the
Thank goodness.
the water shut off. The unfortunate thing was that the wrestling mats were down in the auxiliary gym, so they got wet.
I got cleaned.
Maybe that was a good thing.
As did both locker rooms, the hallway, certainly the vestibule. We lucked out again in that whole area is block and rubberized floors. So, if that would have been the gym floor, the main gym, we would have had a significant problem. Fortunately, it was just clean up the water and repair the drywall, which we have since done. We took all the mats that got wet, we stood them on end, and we turned the heat up in the auxiliary gym, just hoping, and fans and things, just hoping to dry them out. It appears now that they're not going to be salvageable. The interesting thing, and I've learned a lot about wrestling in the intervening time, I guess we had a competition match.
Should have coached it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Need a girls' coach.
So we had a competition mat, which is 3 pieces joined together with, a Velcro strip. Only 2 of the 3 pieces were down in the gym at the time. There was 1/3 of the competition mat rolled up in storage, so 2/3 of it got wet, 1 didn't, plus some of the lightweight kind of accordion-looking mats, I call them. So it's a conversation that needs to be had with the insurance company about, we can't just buy 2/3 of a mat.
Right.
It won't be the same height, it won't color, the painting won't be broken in. Yeah. So we've already had a contractor out, or a vendor out to quote on replacements. The hope would be that we can convince insurance to buy a full mat.
Right.
Are we, I know it was called unseasonably cold at that time. Are we vulnerable to this happening again, or was there other areas?
Well, we've started to look at that. This particular area, what we did was we demoed all of the drywall around it, and we put rigid foam insulation up above, because when it blew the hole it was a hard ceiling in that area, it wasn't a drop ceiling. The cold air that was pouring down there was unreal. Even with the vestibule doors closed on both ends, the thermostat on the wall was reading in the low 40s. And you could see the outer block, you poked your head up there, you could see the outer block wall of the school. So we've kind of isolated that now. We've put rigid foam insulation, foam around it, put the drywall back, and we cut in a 16 by 16 grate to allow some of the heat that's in that vestibule, because there's a little wall heater in there, a cabinet heater, to get up into that space. The next thing is to go about looking at the other
Other
Did the sprinkler heads fail because of the cold, or just?
Yeah, they told us, it was the head itself, it wasn't actually a pipe.
Wow.
And I've heard this from some of the other districts, they think, the little filament or the little bulb in it, just, if it gets a little bit of moisture or some condensation, it just froze and popped. So we all but repaired that area. Matt quote is pending. We're accumulating things like labor and, Home Depot supplies. So we have a spreadsheet going. We're sharing that with insurance. We also had an issue with a classroom 11 at Hereford, where a coil in a unit ventilator in that classroom froze and snapped in split in a whole bunch of places. We primarily got that cleaned up that day. We did call a restoration company in for that evening and for the next couple of days because we needed the equipment, the fans and the dehumidifiers. They actually sprayed an antimicrobial while they were there, and we did lose, I want to say $800-ish worth of kind of classroom supplies. All of the area rugs that the kids sit on they were completely soaked, so we didn't even bother with those. We just hauled them out to the dock and put them in a heap. But for the most part, it was, the outstanding item there is we have to get quotes to replace the coil. We were actually able to, with a contractor's help, we brazed the hot water side of the coil so we could get heat into the classroom. Otherwise, we were going to have to relocate that class to another classroom. But the chilled water side of the coil has 5 or 6 splits in it, so we've got to get a new coil. We just don't have that cost yet to pass on to insurance. The last one was the next day, I think Monday, whatever that was, the 26th.
Yeah.
There's a water line that goes from the high school into the boiler house there, because the boiler house is separate. And it's makeup water for the boilers. And it had a heat wire on the, but it wasn't enough. And
It was really
it
cold.
froze.
Yeah. They only work so well.
Yeah, and split and ruptured. So that one, fortunately, we had a contractor there. They saw it, they called us, we got it shut down, and my staff just cut the bad section out. We put a new section in, we put better insulation on it, and we're hopeful that takes care of it for the next time we get 5 degrees for
For a week.
48 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
What kind of pipe was it?
It was just copper, yeah. And then talking to our insurance adjuster, he said Utica had over 100 school district claims in the state for that weekend.
Yeah.
I know Perkiomen Valley, they had 2 sprinkler heads go. I think I shared some of the video. Ole Elementary School had a pipe go. They couldn't figure out how to shut the water off for 2 hours. So
Oh,
yeah.
no. Oh, my
That was,
gosh.
I got that video about 10 o'clock Christmas night. It was something. But we've already started talking about how we're gonna, manage through this next
So
time.
how long were they actually, how quickly were they able to shut off the water at ours?
I would say it was probably 10 minutes.
Well, if Dave Weller got
Yeah,
there
it was probably
first,
10
that's-
minutes.
Yeah, at least he knows what he's doing.
And the fire department helped us out. They actually
Yeah.
crafted like a chute made out of a tarp, and then they opened the outer door and they were holding it up and the water was hitting the chute and going
Oh, wow.
outside, which was
Clever.
pretty
Yeah.
clever.
They're
Um,
clever.
I ice skated the next day out there.
Yeah, it was-
Exactly.
yes.
You know,
And
usually
the-
it's 4 or 5.
The interesting thing was in the sprinkler room at the middle school, there's 4 risers for different parts, and there's a valve for each. And the one that actually stopped the flow was the one that said library.
Yeah, of course it is.
So, not all that
that's
close,
middle
but,
school. That's scary.
so that's a to-do item to try to get those marked a little bit
Correct.
better.
Yeah.
And,
Good.
so then we had to get a sprinkler company out the next day to fix and then, open the valve and,
And
fingers crossed.
open the
Nothing else
basket.
goes bad,
And everything held fine, and we were restored in that section for, in about a day.
Well, make sure thank you to you, and make sure you thank your team for all that work.
Yeah, I was very happy with my staff. They all, not a hesitation, they all came in.
That's great.
Yeah,
It was,
Thank you.
It's not the way you want to spend your
That's a
holiday.
credit to you.
Yeah.
I mean, your leadership, those
Yeah.
folks obviously respect you
Yep,
to, you know, come in and,
to not ignore
Take
their
care of
phones.
stuff.
yeah, they were surprised to see me. I said, I'm like, you know, of course I was coming, you know,
Yeah.
there's no way I was gonna try to quarterback
something
that
new
from
and different
home.
for them, so.
Well,
Yeah.
Shifting the
Thank you.
culture, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
For doing that.
Well done.
But
Yeah,
I
that's good
prefer to
compliment.
just keep everybody home, but
Yes. Yep.
Perfect world.
Yeah,
Perfect
exactly.
world.
okay, where are
The
we?
boilers.
Marlboro boilers. We're having some trouble with the Marlboro boilers. And just a little bit of the backstory, so I think I've told you in the past, we do some joint RFPs with other school districts in this area. So I go out to RFP for things like, you know, trash and I forget what the others are. But this year we decided as a group, and it's us, Quakertown, Penn Ridge Palisades, and Upper Bucks Technical, is that the? Yeah. So we went out for boiler maintenance PM. So we go out as a group and we get better pricing than you would get, you know, individually. So we inked an agreement with a company called Metz, and they came in and they opened up Marlboro's boilers, and I'm not sure when they were last opened. And there's some concerns with the burner and what they call the refractory in the boilers. It's essentially, the refractory is the heat absorbing material. It's almost like a masonry or a brick inside the boiler. We said, okay, you know, we did what we could to you know, continue on with the maintenance. We closed them up. There's two boilers there. The boiler on the right when you walk into the room is in better shape than the boiler on the left. The boiler on the right, we're able to run in what they call high fire. There's two settings. There's a high fire and a low fire. High fire is much hotter. Low fire is not as hot. The boiler that we're having the issue with, or the most issue with, we're running in low fire currently. This particular vendor has been searching for parts. They called Wheel McLean, which is the boiler manufacturer, and they don't make the parts anymore. The boilers are original to the building. They're, you know, going on 32 years old now. So they're currently searching for third-party burners for these boilers.
Are they
Because
checking Amazon?
Yeah, right?
it may come to that.
You get anything on it.
Etsy.
Or eBay or something.
Sorry.
So what I'm trying to determine, you know, I was hoping to have all this information for tonight, but they haven't had a lot of luck in sourcing third-party parts. But now I think they're on to their third company. But there are companies out there that make, you know, burners for you know,
Custom fab for.
yeah, or something like
Engineer
that.
it
So
somehow.
I'm trying to figure out whether it's good money after bad at this point. You know, can I put, just throw a number out, $10,000 into each boiler and get another 3, 4, 5 years out of it?
Right.
Or is
Or
it's
is-
$30,000 a boiler and it's good money after bad? I did go back and I looked at the ECMs that we had in the Giza project, just to see where the boilers at Marlboro sort of fell in our priority list. And there were 4 categories. It was must-have, high, medium, low. And we tackled with the Giza project all the must-haves and some of the highs. The boiler replacement at Marlboro is a high. So they're 32 years old. I did some research today, and there's, you know, the ASHRAE publishes a useful life document, and for cast iron boilers, it's 30 to, well, it said 30 to 35 years.
Okay.
And we're at 32.
So we're due.
So we're at 32. So, you know, the options as I see it is, you know, maybe the repairs are feasible and they don't cost too much and we can get a few more years out of it, or the other option is we say, we don't want to do that, and we're going to go ahead and replace them.
How many are we talking?
They're 32 years, they're original,
No,
Mark.
how many are there, two?
There's two. Smaller than 4 or 5, certainly, smaller, than the high school. The high school actually has 4 of them. So I had a conversation with Guy from the Resco and Steve from the Resco, because one option we have, if we decide to replace them, is just issue another work order to the Resco and do a one ECM Phase 2A, essentially. Since we signed a master agreement with them, we have that ability. We can just say, look, we want you to look at this scope of work. We'd have to sign, a document where there would be a back-out fee, where if we decided not to, they do all the IGA work, they'll do all of the engineering and the savings calcs and all of that, and present that to us. If we decide to back out at that point, we would owe them for that work.
Right.
I'm not sure why we would back out at that point. But we could go the route of, just an additional Giza ECM to get these replaced. I forced them to spitball a number for me, and looking at the 4 or 5 costs. What we don't have advantage of is we don't have, any economies of scale, because we would be doing a one-off project here. I don't think I know we wouldn't need full-time on-site representation like we had in the, Phase 1A and 1B. So we would certainly save some money there, but it looks like the cost is gonna be $600,000, give or take 10%.
Wow.
Based on the other ones.
600,000. So,
Yeah, you wanna fire up those bake sales at
Yep.
Car Wash,
Exactly.
right away?
we're scheduling now.
Yep.
So I'm trying to gather more information so I can come to the committee and make a solid recommendation. But what's kind of keeping me up at night is I can't let that process drag on too
Yeah.
long, because
'Cause it's
if we
winter.
decide to replace them and it's now April,
Mhm.
we may not make it.
Right.
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 Because this year was weird. Remember Marlboro's a 2-pipe system, so we can cool there or heat, but we can't do both.
Right.
So we have to,
Switch it over.
sort of draw a line in the sand and switch.
Mhm.
This year we switched, I think sometime in October, and then it got real warm and we had to switch back. And we, essentially we would need boilers by, call it Thanksgiving, worst case.
Right.
If the good one that's running on high mode
Mhm.
goes out, can low mode on the other one,
Likely
this school or
not.
no?
Likely not, no.
So we don't even have a backup basically right now for that,
Right.
essentially.
And
You
you
know,
have to
there is-
replace both at once.
Yeah, we would, yeah.
I had to know.
Yeah, I would,
I
right.
had to know.
I know.
So,
I get it.
this is, of everything on the agenda, this is what's causing me the most agita. I don't want to be left in a position where, we've decided to move forward, we've demoed the existing boilers, and then we get notice that the new boilers are delayed, and now we don't have any boilers.
Right.
Really
Now we have to rent a boiler, but I also don't want to replace them, prematurely if they have some life left in
What
them.
did you have to look at the feasibility study? Did you guys mention anything about the boilers on that?
It didn't, because what happened was I gave them the list. Remember, we deferred about 20 or so ECMs to the tune of $8 or $9 million
Yeah.
that we didn't include in Phase 1A or 1B. So they just sort of took that list. They haven't slotted all those projects yet into a 10-year plan. That's still a deliverable that's outstanding.
But they took them as.
They took the list. They're aware of the list of things we didn't do,
Right.
because they weren't in the must-haves. The next round is the highs, soon become the must-haves. So I'm, usually I like to come to you with a solid recommendation, but I don't have one right now.
Not yet.
But I have to move quickly because I don't want too much time to elapse, and then,
Takes forever to get it all together.
yeah, if it turns out through February that we make the decision that we're gonna replace them, and then we have to put an agenda item in a March meeting, I'm not sure we're gonna make it.
Okay.
So I'm,
Well, I guess keep us in the loop on that.
Yeah,
one and
I'm
let
just
us know
not
what
sure,
we need
yeah,
to
well,
do.
the other
More
thought I
definitive
had,
answer.
right, the other thought I had is maybe getting a second opinion. H.D. Lyons, who put in our boilers at Marlboro, I'm sorry, at the high school in 4-5, has a very strong boiler mechanic.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about just say, hey, can you just, give me a couple hours and look these over and tell me what you think?
And when you're talking 600K, I think having
Yeah,
a second set of eyes is.
right.
prudent.
The only rub there is that for him to open them up, they would have to be cooled off, so I couldn't be running them.
Right.
So when can I do that?
Yeah.
Next
Until
holiday.
March? Or-
Yeah, well, we have President's Day,
Yeah.
but we're already at February 20th at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
So JP, I'm just curious, will you, at Thursday's work session, will you, in your report, give the rest of the board the heads up that,
Absolutely.
okay,
Yeah,
Because-
this is a big one.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
and
this
we're
is-
gonna have to
we
make
have
a
a-
decision pretty quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're an open risk right now based on what I asked. If like, if
Right.
the one
We
goes
are.
down, we can't run on the other one in low mode or whatever, so it's.
You know,
Yeah,
Well, if you're
thanks.
concerned about timing also, for
That's the-
full
right.
replacement, I mean, instead of doing a full replacement, and it's gonna cost 20 to 30 to repair,
Right, which I don't
Again,
have
you're-
the numbers yet,
yeah, you know, it
or if they can even
might be
get.
better going that way and taking that safety measure. So, get whatever information you can for us.
Yep.
And, you know, we'll base it on the best information we have at the time.
Right, okay.
So we
All right.
have those two
You're
options.
full of good news tonight.
I'll tell you.
What's that?
You're full of good news.
I'm sure he's gonna finish strong,
Yeah,
don't
here
worry.
we go.
Yes, I did say the decent one for the end.
All right.
The last one is just an FYI. Similar to what we did at the middle school, when we opened, we thought it was important to have a preventative maintenance contract in place. We spent whatever it is, $60 million to spend, I think it's $25,000 a year on a preventative maintenance plan with a contractor. I'm sourcing something similar for the high school. So, we just put $7 million into the high school HVAC equipment plus, and while my staff can do the filters and the belts and things like that, just the sheer volume of equipment, all the heat pumps, and the 40 heat pumps and 20 different things on the roof, and all the air handlers and all the mechanical spaces and pumps and chillers, boilers, I just think that would be a good investment on our part to have a contractor come in twice a year to give us a full service on the equipment. I think that, that'll extend the life well into, what we should and beyond. If you recall, we had a change order for the filters for the geothermal fluid, and I'll send some pictures around when I get them. Thank God we did that, because we're having to change the filters. There's two gauges that show you kind of incoming pressure and leaving pressure, and when there's a significant delta, the filter's clogged, essentially. We're having to change it every 3 weeks. And it's coming out.
So much silt,
Yes, just so much, I don't even know how to describe it, it's just black goop. And we have what they call, the filters are measured in microns. So we have a 25 micron filter in both geothermal systems. Eventually, when all the big stuff is out of the fluid, then we'll be able to drop it to a 15 micron and a 10 and a 5, but we can't seem to get out of the 25. But what that's doing is it's preventing all that muck from getting into all the 40 heat pumps that we just replaced.
Yep.
And that will eventually be resolved.
It will, assuming there's no leaks,
Okay,
it should clear itself out, yes, eventually. We have the same kind of filters on the hot water side and the chilled water side, and nothing, I think we're 5 or 10 microns on theirs, and we don't change those for months.
okay.
So we're hoping, we're just continuing to change them, my point was, thank you, because it was well worth the the money to get those filters in place and just protect the equipment we just put in.
Right.
So that's just sediment that was sitting in the system, basically, that
Yeah.
we're clearing out.
Recycling through, just
Yeah,
flowing
eating up
through.
other.
Got to clean out the fluorocarbons from time to time.
Right.
Exactly.
Anyone? Anyone?
A whole reservoir's clean now, just so I
Right.
say. Yeah, right.
So that, you know, so
Extra.
I'm hoping to have this maintenance agreement
Probably.
refined over the next month and then bring it to the next facilities committee meeting, hopefully for approval. It's gonna, I'll be, full transparency, it's gonna be more expensive than the middle school by far, just based on the sheer amount of equipment in the high school versus the middle school.
Yeah.
But worth it in the end, though.
Yeah.
And I'm going to the same company that installed it. You know, I was very impressed with HD Lines
They
and
did
their
a good job.
mechanics. They are a CoStar's vendor. And so we'll have two different companies maintaining, you know, the middle school and the high school, and then we'll just see which one, you know, we like best, and, you know, eventually standardize to one, but I don't see any issue with going with two for now.
Okay.
Good.
Well, thank you for all that, Doug.
Yeah, it's,
Sure.
That was done.
that was
Just
helpful.
didn't work.
Yeah. All right. Is there any comments from the public in attendance?
Yes.
Peg, go ahead.
What's the latest on exterior cameras?
So we have them, they're working at Hereford. We have the wiring done at Marlboro. So from the switches and things, the IT closets, we have to now mount the cameras outside and drill the holes. Last will be 4 or 5. Art and I are scheduled to meet, I think, next week to just go over placement and where, so that'll be the third of the 3 schools. We bought 18 exterior cameras, 6, 6, and 6, so we kind of fit those in as we.
It's amazing how much you can see with them. I mean, we have.
The Hereford cameras look really good. They look
And at the
really
high
good.
school, what do we have at the high school?
We have exterior and interior.
Yeah, but do we have the cameras looking out the back at the high school?
We have one that points towards I think it's actually maybe mounted on the building right there by the boiler house, so it points down past the maintenance shop towards like the
But
baseball field.
nothing on the stadium field?
We don't have anything in the stadiums.
All right, just curious.
No.
All right.
We have purchased new interior cameras for the high school with a grant, so we're hoping this summer to get those replaced and we bought additional cameras because there's stairwells and things at the high school that are not currently covered.
And are we still moving forward with replacing the maid baskets at the high school gym?
Yes, yep, that PO was issued, we're just kind of waiting until this
Nice.
basketball season's over.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're gonna have to work with Dr. Carpenter, Mr. Kurzweg, and the gym teachers to see if we can get in there before the end of the season. Worst case, we'll do it over the summer.
Yeah, sorry I was texting you that other night. but
No,
it
that
looks
was-
so ghetto. Sorry, that's the only word
It's
I can
coming.
use.
It's coming.
Yeah, yeah, when I said something to the custodians, they were a little embarrassed. They just had forgotten about those events and
Well, I was, that and the basket, that one
the strap.
strap coming down. It was just,
Yeah.
I'm like, geez, you know, you did such a great job painting the gym.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So it looks
nice,
more
yeah.
like
Yeah.
a quality space, and then
Right.
See that?
I'm looking up and I'm like, what? So,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's all
Thanks for
that's taken care of at
Your
this point.
immediate attention to that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Peg. Mr. Elliott in the back.
There's no chance none of those baskets will fit over Marlboro, are there?
No, we're still, I have that on my whiteboard, Mike. I'm still
Okay.
working on that. I've called 2 or 3 different glass companies and they say they don't do that work, so we'll find somebody. We definitely will.
Good. And then just a question, because the boilers over at Marlboro weren't on the Giza study? Would they have been on the?
They were.
They were on the Giza
Yeah.
study. They were ranked as a high need.
Oh, okay,
Not
all
a
right.
must-have.
I just misunderstood, okay, all
There
right.
was
cool.
must-have, high, medium, low. They were high.
Okay, so they did get it, okay,
Oh, yeah, they
Second round
did get
draft
looked
pick.
at.
Yes,
Yes.
I
Yes.
okay, all right. Ugh. All right, that's all for me, thank you.
Thank you. Fellow committee members?
Nope. I'm
Anything
good.
else?
I'm good.
Okay, I'm good. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Mike, as a, Mike, I
Yes.
didn't get your question.
What's that?
Get your
Say in a
question.
minute, so.
Which question was that?
Turn camera off.
Oh, it did, yeah, that was, I asked these guys, like, when did the 1990 thing? Wait, is the video on? Should we turn that
I
on?
know the person.
Right? You got it?
And they didn't either.
Yeah, we gotta get it better.
Like, I'm sitting